Admiral Kiran Ados stood at the helm of her ship, staring out at the endless void of space. Stars twinkled in the distance, but their light felt cold and distant. She had been through countless battles, watched the Terran unity rise from a fractured collection of colonies to a united force, but this felt different. There was a storm brewing, one she couldn't control. The Luminar collective was coming, and with them, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The Luminars were ancient. The first whispers of their existence had come from deep space probes sent to the fringes of the galaxy. They were a species so old that they had once ruled entire star systems before humanity had even invented the wheel. What Kiran had learned about them from intercepted communications and ancient databases sent shivers down her spine. The Luminars were not conquerors. They were architects of order, meticulous and calculating, driven by an almost religious devotion to control. They viewed chaos, unpredictability, and disorder as the ultimate evils. Humanity, with its creative and erratic nature, represented everything they despised. "Admiral," came the steady voice of her second-in-command, Commander Selena Voss, "the Luminar fleet will enter our sensor range in 10 minutes. Initial scans show over 100 ships, and the energy signatures are off the charts." Kiran nodded but didn't take her eyes off the stars. "Is everything prepared?" "Yes, Admiral," Selena responded, her voice tight with the same tension everyone felt. "All defenses are in place." "But," she hesitated, "are you sure we should go through with this? The Luminars, they don't play by our rules." Kiran finally tore her gaze from the stars and looked at Selena. "The Luminars don't play by any rules. That's the point. They don't negotiate, they dictate. They see us as chaos, and chaos has no place in their version of the universe." Selena's brow furrowed. "Then why offer to meet them? Why not just prepare for war?" Kiran smiled, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Because sometimes, chaos needs to show its own kind of order. We're not just fighting for survival today, Commander. We're fighting for the right to exist as we are." Selena didn't argue further. She trusted Kiran, even if she didn't fully understand her plan. As the minutes ticked by, the tension in the command center grew. Everyone knew what was coming. The Luminars were notorious for their brutal efficiency. They didn't start wars, they ended them. Entire civilizations had vanished, without a trace, under their cold, calculating control. Finally, the sensors picked up the approaching fleet. Kiran's eyes flicked to the main screen as the tactical display illuminated with red dots. Dozens of Luminar ships, each larger and more advanced than anything humanity had ever built. They moved in perfect formation, like pieces of a machine designed for one purpose: to eradicate chaos. "They're hailing us," Selena said quietly. Kiran straightened, her pulse steady. "Put them through." The screen flickered, and a figure appeared, tall, thin, and imposing. Archon Salos, the Luminar commander, stood bathed in cold, artificial light. His face was gaunt, his eyes sharp and calculating, like those of a predator sizing up its prey. He was one of the most feared figures in the galaxy, a tactician whose mind was as precise as the machines he commanded. "Admiral Ias," Zalos said, his voice smooth and almost serene, "I see you've chosen to meet us rather than flee. Admirable, but foolish." Kiran's expression remained neutral. "I don't run from a fight, Archon, but this doesn't have to be one." Zalos tilted his head slightly, like a predator contemplating whether to play with its food. "Oh, but it does. You humans. Your very existence is an affront to the balance of the galaxy. You thrive on chaos, on unpredictability. You are dangerous, and left unchecked, you will unravel everything we have built." Kiran didn't flinch. "You think order is the only way to live, but life itself is chaos, Archon. Trying to control it is futile. It's like trying to control the tides or stop a star from burning." Xalos's smile was thin and cold. "And yet we have done exactly that. The galaxy thrives under our rule. There is no disorder, no war, no unpredictability, only control." Kiran's eyes hardened. "Control isn't peace, it's stagnation. Your kind hasn't evolved in millennia because you fear change. You've become machines." Salos's gaze sharpened, but his smile didn't falter. "Machines are precise. They do not make mistakes. And that is why, Admiral, you will fall today. You are chaos incarnate, and chaos will always lose to order. The screen went dark, and the command center fell silent. Selena turned to Kieran, her face pale. What now? Now we fight. As the battle unfolded, the void of space became a violent dance of fire and light. The Luminar fleet moved with the precision of a symphony, each ship acting in perfect unison, their energy weapons slicing through the darkness with deadly accuracy. The human fleet, by contrast, was chaotic, unpredictable, moving in ways the Luminars couldn't predict. And for a while, that chaos gave them an edge. Kieran watched the tactical display, her mind racing through 1,000 calculations. She knew they couldn't win a direct fight. The Luminars were too powerful, too advanced. But they weren't invincible. They had a weakness. Their very obsession with control made them vulnerable to the one thing they couldn't understand: unpredictability. "Commander?" Kieran said, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Initiate the Phantom Protocol." Selena's eyes widened in shock. "Admiral, are you sure? The Phantom Protocol? It's never been tested." "It could. Just do it," Kieran ordered, her voice firm. Reluctantly, Selena nodded and input the command. Across the fleet, human ships suddenly powered down, their energy signatures disappearing from the sensors. The battlefield went dark, and for a moment, the Luminar fleet hesitated. Kieran smiled grimly. They can't fight what they can't see. The Phantom Protocol was a last-ditch effort, a technological gamble that masked the human fleet's energy signatures, making them invisible to sensors. But it wasn't perfect. It left them vulnerable. If the Luminars figured out how to track them visually, it would be over. For a moment, the battlefield was eerily quiet. Then, slowly, the Luminar fleet began to move again, their ships scanning the void for any sign of the human fleet. But Kieran had anticipated this. "Fire on my mark," she said quietly. Her fleet waited, holding their positions in the dark, until the Luminar ships were right on top of them. Then, with a single word, Kieran unleashed the full force of the Terran fleet. Energy weapons fired in all directions, catching the Luminar ships off guard. Explosions rippled through their ranks, as several ships were destroyed in an instant. But Hesplos was no fool. The moment his ships were hit, he recalibrated, adapting to the chaos with ruthless efficiency. The Luminar fleet regrouped, and the battle continued. As Kieran watched the tactical display, she knew this fight couldn't be won through brute force. They needed an advantage, something the Luminars couldn't anticipate. That's when she remembered. Years ago, during one of humanity's early expeditions into deep space, a team of scientists had discovered something ancient and powerful. It was a piece of technology unlike anything they had ever seen, and its origin was a mystery. The scientists had dubbed it the core. They had been studying it in secret ever since, trying to unlock its potential, but no one had been able to figure out how it worked. Until now. "Commander," Kieran said, her voice low but urgent. "Prepare the core." Selena's eyes widened in disbelief. "The core? Admiral, that's—" "I know what it is," Kieran interrupted. "But it's our only chance." Selena hesitated, but she trusted Kieran. With a nod, she began the sequence to activate the core. It had been installed in Kieran's flagship as a last resort, a weapon of unimaginable power, but no one knew what would happen when it was used. As the core powered up, the entire ship hummed with energy. Kieran could feel it vibrating through her bones, a strange, almost alien sensation. She had no idea what the core would do, but she knew it was their only hope. Then, without warning, the ship's systems went dark, the lights flickered, and for a brief moment, everything stopped. Kieran's heart pounded in her chest as she glanced at the tactical display. The core had activated, but instead of a weapon, it unleashed something far more terrifying. A ripple of energy spread out from the ship, like a shockwave, but instead of destroying the Luminar ships, it did something else. It changed them. The perfect order of their formation began to break apart, their precise movements faltering. And then, one by one, the Luminar ships began to turn on each other. "What's happening?" Selena gasped, her eyes wide with shock. Kieran's mind raced, trying to comprehend what she was seeing. The core wasn't just a weapon, it was something more. It was disrupting the very order the Luminars relied on, turning their own ships into agents of chaos. As the Luminar fleet descended into madness, Kieran's heart pounded in her chest. She had won, but at what cost? And then, as if from nowhere, a voice crackled through the comms. It was Halos. "Well played, Admiral," he said, his voice calm but laced with something far darker. "But you've only delayed the inevitable. You've unleashed something you don't understand. The core, it's not a tool of victory. It's a harbinger of something far worse." Kieran's blood ran cold as Zalos's words sank in. She had thought the core was their salvation, but now she realized it was something else entirely, something ancient and malevolent, something far beyond even the Luminar's control. And as Galos's ship powered down, disappearing into the darkness, Kieran was left standing on the bridge, staring into the void, knowing that whatever she had awakened was only just beginning.